attendance. I'm Dave Rossica from Senior Vice President of Global Customer Support from Somero Enterprises, joined with Greg Myers and Devin here from ForgeFX, and we're here to talk about the rolling out or the beginning of what we hope is a very long partnership in bringing training to the masses. So one of the things that we want to talk about today is certainly the launch of our S22EZ VR training functionality. We've worked together here for the past year and a half now on developing this training methodology for a number of different customers for a number of different reasons. And so one of the things that we'll be helping to address is some of the problems and issues that we try to tackle as they pertain to employee development, certainly training development with new operators of our equipment, laser screed pilots as we like to call them, as well as even a vocational perspective. So just to be able to draw in new people to the industry, and I think that's really important for the construction industry as a whole. So a little bit about Somero. You're probably not going to know what a Somero laser screed is. I'll get to that in a minute, but you're certainly going to be familiar with what our work product is. At Somero, we were the leaders in the industry, over 35, 36 years ago. So since our founding, we've been able to grow into a global leader of technology as well as manufacturing. And so we always try to set the benchmark higher for whether it's the technology, comprehensive training programs, certainly it's our exceptional customer support, and then just trying to keep the industry moving ahead with new innovation. One of the things that is kind of near and dear to me, we have an actual concrete institute at our headquarters in Fort Myers, Florida. And so through there, our goal is to incorporate this type of training into our curriculum and certainly be able to advance that level of training that's attained. So here's what our flagship product is. So this is a very big piece of construction equipment, and it can basically finish out or screed out thousands of square feet each and every day. And so it's got a 20-foot telescoping boom. The machine can rotate 360 degrees. It has a head that can manipulate around stationary objects. And we use laser guided controls to keep the floor to very precise increments. And we've been the leader in this, the originator as well as the leader in this for many, many years. And so even though it's a big machine, like I said before, you may not be familiar with what the machine is or what it does, but you've all walked on its product, the end product, which is virtually all the Walmart floors around the world, Bunnings stores, which are like an Australian entity, Home Depot, Big Box, Amazon distribution centers, etc. So it is a big piece of that workflow for the flooring construction. So when you talk about specific operator training focus, no matter, even if you have a relatively simple machine or very complex, it's always the operator or the pilot that is the one that's in control and has all the control over what the finished product is. And oftentimes when you try to master these products, sometimes they have a very short time when you start to ramp up and learn about them, and other times it takes years. And so we'll start to get into a little bit of that dissertation about, what's the labor market look like? How's the construction industry faced with an aging workforce and so on? So we'll get to that in a little bit. So here's a picture of the S22EZ actually working on a flooring project, and so you can see there's a lot of stuff going on any typical job site. You've got the machine itself, the operator, you've got concrete trucks lined up, oftentimes boom pumps, you have people working on the floor, and then ultimately the finishers come in to do their work. So a lot of stuff going on. It's a high stakes process, and concrete is a high stakes product. It's perishable. I had a note here that once it's poured out, you've got about an hour to work with, depending. It varies by temperature, by the amount of wind that you have, if it's sunny or cloudy, what the mix, if it has any special admixtures. So there's a lot of ingredients that go into this recipe, and we always want to just be prepared to the utmost. Every second counts, and every action matters, and if you screw up a floor, it's a costly deal. So now we start to talk a little bit about labor and how the operator fits in. Normally, historically, what would happen is that these folks are the trades that they start off doing one thing, and ultimately, as they progress through their roles, then they often end up in superintendent positions, or maybe a little higher visibility roles like you'd see one of these operators do. The machine's a big machine. It's the biggest object on the job site, and when something goes wrong, typically all eyes are on that person. Aside from that, the construction industry is facing all these unprecedented challenges, and so based on some information here from the ASGCA, says nearly 80% of construction firms report difficulty in finding skilled workers. And those on our team and our group, we travel around the world, talk to different customers, and in particularly this year, it's been very apparent that one of the forces holding back the growth of companies is actually being able to attain skilled workers. So it's not that they don't have contracts, it's not that they don't have the equipment, the supply, the distribution, it's that they don't have labor that can fill the roles. On top of that, 41% of today's construction workers are expected to retire in a few years. And so once that happens, that pendulum is going to shift even more. So, I think to say that we're experiencing a workforce crisis might be a little bit strong, but certainly we're going to have to be thinking about how we, entice people to get interested in construction in the first place, how we train them quickly to help them get up to speed to be productive, and make it all work for the general contractors, the construction company owners, and ultimately the customer. Again, one of the biggest risks is that to our customers is that they need to find people that can show up every day, learn what they need to learn, be productive, and do the job at a high skill level. So this is one of the things that, as we start talking about this VR simulator, we start to, you'll hear me say things about muscle memory and going through a checklist process or doing things in a particular manner, and it's all for these very, very reasons. So we're using the simulator to help build familiarity, and when you do this, it starts to, you reinforce terminology, which ultimately, when these people call us for help, then we're all talking the same language, and that's very helpful just from a communication standpoint. From the Somero side, we have a large group of technicians, and they have to travel all over the world taking care of our customers. And if you start off at a junior level technician or a trainer, it takes you years to attain skills. And so conversely, for our customers, it's kind of the same way. The trades, they just don't develop overnight. And so we are, we've embarked on this quest to be able to help not only our customers, but some of our own employees to be able to develop themselves further, and this is going to go a long way towards it. Our customers are typically those types that they're tradespeople, so they work with their hands. They learn by doing and learn by showing others and examples. And so this is why we want to use the VR technology, because it's very immersive. You're going through the actions and really getting a much better understanding than you ever would through a video content or a written workbook. So there's some other logistical challenges that we try to address from this project and product. So we have the labor shortage and just the logistics of moving people around. If we train people out on site, like any construction site, you've got weather impacts, you've got labor impacts, you've got material impacts, a lot of variables. A lot of things really need to line up right just to have a good day at work. And so when you start to factor in other things like, from a training perspective, when you talk about the fuel, at our training center, we actually place in Screed concrete and then recycle it. So there's costs involved with it. Likewise, when our customers come to us, they have to travel. They have to take time out of their day to come to our fantastic training center, but again, it's time and travel expense. So we're trying to resolve some of these issues where we can basically train anytime, any place, with groups of people from various places around the world with a central trainer, in a very, very lifelike situation. So we'll start to get into some of these examples here. A little bit about our backstory. I met Greg a few years ago, Greg Myers here, at this show. So it'd be 5 years to the date, maybe 6 years almost. And very intrigued with the work that they were doing with other equipment training. And so, taking a little bit of a visionary look at it and trying to understand how this could help us, we ended up working through a pilot series with them and ultimately arrived at our finished product. So, just a couple of examples. Last year we ran a pilot program here with people coming into our booth and trying the VR, collecting feedback, making adjustments. And then, but one of the things that we found that through the year as we tested it, we could take people that had little to no experience, like they knew what our equipment was, but they had no sense of operating it or even how it was ultimately used in the chain of work, but went through the training, went out to the machine, and they were able to, through muscle memory, be able to operate, that was meaningful. So employees with no prior experience being able to go through and ultimately operate the equipment. Certainly in a lot of the feedback that we received, the people that go through this type of training, they exhibit a higher level of confidence, it's a higher rate of retention, and these are all steps that help them become successful. So yeah, we're very excited to unveil the S22EZ VR training simulator, and comes complete with has a full suite of comprehensive training lessons. So these are all stepped in terms of sequence. And so you start off with some very basic machinery checks, and then you start to get into the operation. We get into some situations where we are loading and unloading from a trailer, which for an operator, that's one of the most unsettling experiences that they have to do. And so then lastly, we end up actually screeding concrete, smoothing out concrete. And really, the only step from there is to actually do it in reality. There's no other way to do it other than in virtual reality. As we start to talk about some of these lessons, again, cockpit familiarization, basic controls, laser system setup. So if you're not familiar with the laser screed, it has a set of receivers on it that pick up a laser beam that's cast from a laser transmitter, and then through a control system that helps control the machine for the leveling. So there's specific, each one of these has specific steps to go through and set up, and this VR training steps through those processes. Certainly looking for some ROI, and there is some incremental environmental impact from a sustainability perspective, travel costs, fuel usage, and so on. But we think that, aside from those, it's going to be primarily a training with an angle to vocational and academic interest. And then certainly for our own sales team, could actually end up being a good demonstration tool. So with some of our small equipment, we can transport it around easily for our customers to try out. When you're talking to a machine this big, you need a it's just not that easy, so this is one way we can do that, so. I'm gonna hand it over to Greg now, and then he's gonna take us through a little bit of the technical side of it, and then we'll actually get into some demonstrations. It'll be pretty cool. So, all right, awesome. Hey, great.
Thank you, Dave. Yeah, so my name is Greg Myers. I am the CEO and one of the co-founders of ForgeFX Simulations, and we are a company that specializes in developing training simulators. That is pretty much all that we do. With the advent of consumer-based virtual reality, probably the majority of the simulators that we build these days are VR-based simulators, like the one that we built for Dave here and for Somero. And so at ForgeFX, what we do is we use simulation-based training tools to combine the knowledge from Dave's team and his subject matter experts to incorporate them into our simulator that allows us to really provide training that comes from the subject matter experts, but it's in the language of simulation-based training. The S22 is really, it's a perfect example of how cutting-edge technology can solve some of the challenges that they have. So I'm just going to quickly go into a little bit of what we developed and how we developed it, and some of the advantages of it, and then I'm going to switch over to Devin, who's got the simulator running, and we'll try to cast that onto the screen. But really, what this is the next evolution in concrete training. And I really like to say it's a revolution, because we suddenly have the ability to develop a digital asset that provides training in a way that really was not possible before a couple of years ago. And I'll walk through that in a minute. But the way we did this project is we replicated their real-world equipment and their real-world operations into a virtual environment. So we converted their CAD files into simulator-ready, high-fidelity but optimized models that run very fast in our simulation engine. Then we developed the application on top of the Unity platform, which is the platform that about 90% of all video games are developed on. So it's a very tried and true platform. And then on top of that is our own proprietary ForgeSim framework. Being in the business of developing simulators for 20 years, we have a lot of code that we can reuse across customers. So when Dave came to us and he had wheels that turn, we already have that code in place, so it allows us to very quickly generate simulators without having to hand code everything. We are harnessing the Unity XR-ITK interaction toolkit, which is basically a set of component-based tools that Unity, the developer of the engine, developed that allows us to develop AR and VR and XR applications very fast, as opposed to having to hand code some of those operations of reaching out and grabbing things or manipulating things. They've done a lot of that work for us so that we can streamline our own process. And ultimately what this allows us to do is not only create a digital replica of the Somero equipment, but also we can create virtual concrete that has realistic physics, has the right viscosity, really allows us to start working with not just rigid hard body components, but also these viscous materials. Dave talked about the expense of actually pouring real concrete. With our simulator, we can allow operators to pour concrete completely virtually, so there is no cost to them to pour concrete, make a mistake, try it again. You're not burning consumable fuel, so it really cuts down on the cost and allows an operator to try some things that they might be hesitant to try in the real world due to making a mistake. And the thing to me that really makes this project revolutionary is we are deploying on the MetaQuest hardware that Devin's got right there. Back in the day when we started developing simulators, if I wanted an immersive simulator that had stereoscopic 3D and hand tracking and positional tracking and all the features that this had, we would have had to build a dome the size of this room and have projectors. Now, in a $300 device that you can go and buy at Best Buy, that is our entire simulation station. Very portable, so it's a very mobile form factor. If Dave needs to ship a simulator to Australia, he can FedEx it literally overnight and be there the next day. It features standalone operation, so an operator can put it on and be completely on their own, and there's a virtual trainer that talks them through. They get the voiceover narration. They also get all of the text from the manual, but it's presented in a very digestible format. As well as it has a multi-user component. So if you're a gamer, you probably know that, or if you have family members who are gamers, you're not just playing against the computer anymore. computer is online, you're playing against people all around the world. We piggyback on that exact same technology. So Dave and his team could train someone in Boston, Barcelona, and the Bahamas all in the same day without having to get on the plane. Though maybe you'd like to go to the Bahamas, right? We'll work on that. And the application includes hand tracking. So instead of having to have the real world controls, when Devin fires up the simulator, you're going to see that he's interacting with what looks like just the air, but he's grabbing virtual elements within the simulator and interacting with them. And you'll see that in a moment. And so what we do is, the first thing we do is we replicate the machine. So we create a digital replica that has all of the controls, all of the behaviors, responds to the operator controls, includes real-time physics like I mentioned, so the machine operates like you would expect it to. And we also support, like I mentioned, multi-user, as well as cloud-based performance monitoring. So everything that a user is doing within the simulator, we are tracking every single metric. And we work with Somero to determine what are those metrics that we track of a user to determine if they're doing a good job or not. And what this allows us to do is to see a performance report at the end. And I can see, okay, Greg's a great operator, he's doing everything well, but for some reason he's messing up on, loading and unloading the machine. Let's bring him in here and just focus on that one specific area that he needs help with, as opposed to running him through the entire training session again. So really, we see the simulator as not just a training tool, but really a way of transforming training and taking advantage of some of the modern technologies to solve problems that are not unique to companies in the construction industry. They all face similar problems. And so what we can do now is we can give the operator the ability to practice critical tasks over and over. And one of the things we like to say is we want the pilot to crash the plane in the simulator, right? We want them to make mistakes and fail in our simulator so that they learn from those mistakes here. When they go out in the real world, they kind of have that deja vu moment because the simulator is so realistic. They're about to do something like, wait, I've done this before. Let me slow down, do it correctly. So in addition to delivering training, we like to think that we're delivering muscle memory for the controls, as well as spatial memory, where you've had this experience, you've gone through it, albeit virtual, but it allows you to not make those same mistakes in the real world. In addition to the simulator, once we've developed the replica of it, added all the physics, we layer the comprehensive training lessons that Dave was talking about. So we step them through everything from machine control familiarization, basic operation, all the way up to screening operations. And so it really allows an operator to become familiar with the equipment, much as they would in the real world. And we take the curriculum that Somero teaches in the real world, bring it into our simulator so that they are able to do it virtually. We include tutorials. We are able to bring in all of Somero's existing video assets and PDFs. So the simulator sort of becomes a library for all of their assets. So it's not like this is just virtual reality. We can bring in and repurpose all of their existing media so that they can leverage that content that they've already created. Excuse me. This is just some of the examples of the pre-start inspection, where you're able to see different tasks that are being done. The user is given the ability to walk around the machine, look for faults, look for different things that are wrong. The essential steps are really important. I'm actually going to skip ahead a little bit on this. Diving a little bit deeper into the special features of this simulator. In addition to giving hands-on screening operations, it allows people to really practice all of the different things the machine can do to really become familiar with it. So a lot of times operators have a limited amount of time with the equipment. They've got 2 hours with the trainer, and the time is short. Our simulator can fit in a shoebox. You can take it home, you can practice it overnight, you can sit at your kitchen table practicing. It really gives you this ability to bring a machine with you that is not a portable machine. The multi-user aspect that I mentioned is really something that sets this apart, and in my mind, it is what allows us to say we are revolutionizing training. Like I mentioned, Dave could have a trainer here. There could be trainees all around the world, all in the same session, and he could be training them without ever getting on a plane. People can learn how to work together. So if 2 guys are going to go do a job tomorrow, they can practice the night before. Let's figure out what that job we're going to do. How long is this going to take us? When you're doing your job, what am I doing? So it really allows for collaboration. And then the performance analysis that I mentioned. We take, real care in working with our customers to figure out what are those metrics you want to measure, and then we build performance analysis modules that allow them to track that, not only at the end of the module when you get a performance report, but in real time, operators are getting feedback. So if you're going too fast or too slow or something's just not right, you're getting real-time feedback as if you had a trainer there with you. Safety is a huge part of Somero. They are very safety conscious. They want all their operators to come home safely at the end of the day. So safety is built into every single lesson. That was really impressed upon us by Somero. That's what they wanted us to be focusing on. So performance is graded on collisions and adherence to safety practices. And if you're making mistakes in the simulator that in the real world job site would not be acceptable, we are tracking that and reporting on that. And the way we are successfully able to work with Dave's team and get that subject matter expert feedback is we work in an agile development methodology. So kind of in the old days of software development, we get the requirements document, go off for 6 months, write the application, and then come back and hand it off. And that would work because you would get the application, sure, it matches what the client asked for originally. But as we all know, you kind of, as you're building something, you realize, well, maybe this isn't exactly what we wanted. So our method allows us to put a build of the application in front of Somero's team every 2 weeks, collect their feedback, and then course correct. And that is part of our process. So we understand that there are going to be changes that come up, but we have built this into our process so that the team who is using it, they say, okay, this is what we asked for, but now that we see it, we'd like it slightly different. And we have that built into our schedule. I'm going to quickly show a brief demo video here. Hopefully this will come across. Let's turn the audio on. So here's what you're going to be seeing when Devin loads up the simulator. We've got the virtual environment there that allows you to, again, get that spatial memory. So you've been in this environment, you've been using the equipment, you see it's guiding you through all these different checkpoints. It points out specific areas that we know we need them to pay attention to. It provides all of the tools. You can see it's being done with hand tracking here. They're able to go around the machine, really inspect it, really get a good feeling for how it works. Again, that hands-on training is something that Somero always preaches, and so we made sure that you can see it's taking advantage of virtual hands, which Devin will show you in more detail in a moment. Yeah, Devin, I think rather than just showing these videos, I would love to actually start the demo. I think that would be probably more entertaining for folks to actually see you using it. So it's okay, I'm going to switch over. Let's see if we can get the casting working. If we could dim the lights, that would be great. The casting stopped then, so you'll probably have to restart it. Okay. And so what you're seeing here is, in a moment, what you'll be seeing here is Devin is using just that headset. There is no peripheral computer. It's not connected to anything but the Wi-Fi connection now. And he is going to be launching the Somero application in the headset, and then we're just going to cast it to this screen, hopefully, and see if we can't show you what Devin sees. So let me stop this slideshow, just so we can get this to work.
Having Wi-Fi issues.
Okay. So while Devin's getting that Wi-Fi issue, I will just jump back to our deck here for a minute. Devin, just let me know when you're ready.
Sure thing.
So in addition to all of the ability to do machine control familiarization and understand how to use the machine, what you can see here is actual screeding operations taking place. So it is virtual concrete. It's not costing the company any amount of money to be able to say, hey, go out and try this screeding pass. This concrete is not costing the company anything. We are not burning consumables. What you're seeing there, that green overlay, we are able to do things that you cannot do in reality. So in reality, I kind of have to look at the grade and use the tools on the machine, maybe get off the piece of equipment. Here what we're doing is we're really trying to teach that leveling, the ability to do an accurate pour. So here they're able to see sometimes overlays. Devin, let me know when you're ready still. And it really gives you the ability to practice all of the operations. And there's some of the overlays I was talking about. So here we're showing where the grade is off, where the differences are, so a user starts to really get an understanding of not just how the equipment works, but what materials they're gonna be laying down. And these all have a true physics model built into them. So we are able to really accurately represent different mixtures of concrete that is being poured down. And I think Devin is still struggling to get on the Wi-Fi a little bit there, so I will continue on here. Let's get over here. So we talked about safety warnings. Here someone is about to extend the boom too far without deploying the stabilizers, and you'll see that the simulator triggers an immediate warning that just came up there. And it's, you know, reinforcing these critical safety procedures. This is something that we find is super important in our simulators to really make it so that when someone does something that is an unsafe practice, we throw that up on the screen, we give them the alerts, we really are trying to teach safety so that a user is not just efficient, but they're doing their job safely.
I've started my casting.
Okay, thank you, then I'll switch over. And so we're getting this casting working, I hope. But what this ability does, so in addition to the headset, you know, Devin is in full stereoscopic 3D, it says casting stop, Devin. Devin's in full stereoscopic 3D, and he's able to have this experience, but the ability for the device to cast to a screen is a very beneficial experience because it allows Devin or a trainer to be in the simulator. There you go, Devin. And he can actually show a room full of people what he's working on. So maybe I'll let Devin start to do the simulator. And Dave, do you want to maybe talk through what he's doing? Or
Yeah, I can do that, but it
Okay.
seems like we've got a little bit of a disconnect
Oh.
between the PowerPoint.
yeah, I see that. Let me fix that. Sorry, folks. I was told once that you're supposed to make your presentations fail so you look human, but I promise you that's not what I'm doing. Okay, Devin, now we got you going.
Okay.
Yeah, so really what Devin's doing now is he has a panel that works in front of him, he has a boundary set up for his safety, so these are all, they kind of work hand in hand with, some of the boundaries items are with respect to the MetaQuest headsets. But you always have a panel at your fingertips, and what this panel is helping you do is guide you through a lesson. It's helping you to, complete certain steps and give you direction. You can choose to proceed with it or without it. And at the end of the day, you have some other information at your fingertips. If you need to get to an operator manual, for instance, these are all things that exist outside of this program in a different silo of information. But what we're using is the VR program to kind of incorporate all that together and actually make it a more meaningful experience for the operator or the trainee. You want to start some screening operations?
Yeah, sounds good.
And so, as mentioned before, one of the most incredible things that I've found about this program is that this is really the first time that we can screen virtually. And it's not just artwork, it's actually math that's built into the program. So you do end up with some real world results. So as you get onto the machine, there's different ways that you can manipulate yourself around the project, around the machine. You get into the operator station, and then as you start to go through the steps, then we'll start to begin some of the screening operations. So the hand controllers that he's using right now, that comes with the headset, but what it's actually doing is replicating, once you lay over the joystick representation on the machine, then it acts just like you're moving the joystick in a particular direction, pressing a particular button to get the output that you need. And they're certainly fun to drive around. So as I mentioned before, some of the loading and unloading techniques, can be a bit disconcerting. But in this environment, it's truly, you're able to work on, have that safety without penalty type training situation. So as you can see off in the distance, this is a guided mode, so it's gonna have this golden arch that you're aiming towards, because it wants you to position the machine in that location, and then once you get there, then, you know, step completed, now we're gonna move on to the next step. You can see there's already been a placement of concrete, a strip of concrete that's been laid out adjacent to the finished floor, and now we're just gonna go through each individual step to begin the screening process. Yeah, so these are, the nice thing about all the steps in here is that it's a compilation of people that have many years of experience operating the equipment, our own published manuals, certainly the best practices that we incorporate into our other training initiatives. And so this is really a compilation of that. And you know, it's just a fantastic way to get kind of the best training experience that you can.
Can I just clarify something?
You bet.
So there's two user experiences. One is like an independent learning environment where you're kind of moving through the modules or the steps yourself. And the other one is where you're actually led by a trainer through.
Well, so then there's actually three,
Okay.
which is a great point that you brought up. So you can go through an individual type situation, guided mode. So just as Devin's being led through this situation, and it just helps you every step along the way.
Okay.
And then you can go through an individual unguided mode, which is, now you're depending on your attention, what you remember on how the process should take place. And at the end, you're still scored. So then the third methodology really would be, you know, another human, a trainer-led situation. Think of it as a Teams meeting, but you're meeting in a virtual environment rather than just faces on your laptop. And so that trainer can direct the trainees with real life experience, and here you should look at this and you should look at that. And then there's some real neat functionality where, from the operator station perspective, for example, where Devin is right now, if one of the folks that's in the training takes control, then everybody kind of stacks up and has that first person view as if they were operating the machine, even if they're not. So it's just very good from an experiential perspective to help share information. I hope that answered your question. Great job. So as Devin's going through, you can see that there are indicators on the display with respect to, you know, these are all very status quo with how the machine is performing when it's set up in the work environment. And so I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say Devin's hearing voiceover narration in his ear also. No, where it's quiet here, but he's hearing instructions.
Okay. Yeah, and that's one nice thing is that in the virtual environment, in the guided mode, you're actually hearing those prompts coming through, not just reading it on the screen in front of you. So it really is kind of a great guided environment to be working in, and certainly very comfortable. At this point, yeah, I think normally what we would do is, once we complete that Screed pass, then we would keep moving over, the machine is discharging to the right, and it's just very representative of what's happening in the real world. I think there are even some situations where maybe somebody wants to see what happens if you screed in an S pattern, or things that are very non-traditional, things that you would never want to tell anybody to do. Or if he was to swing to the left and actually bump the screed head against the wall, then he's going to get an alert saying that you've got an obstruction. And so if you were to do that in real life, somebody would for sure get chewed out a little bit in a very constructive fashion. But on the same token, there's real damage, and these are big, expensive machines built to deliver a very precise product, and certainly the bumps and bruises don't help along the way. Devin, did you want to try jumping into maybe either try some of the grade checking? You'd have to progress a little bit further, but in some of the, yeah, there you go. So in some of the earlier video demonstration, we're showing like what the ideal grade or what the grade should be set to, which is helpful from a person that understands that terminology. There's someone familiar with the flooring process. That's kind of an important benchmark to them. And man, if we could have something like this in real life, think down the road. Maybe there's a program that you actually wear while you're operating the machine, and it's working off of there's a lot of stuff going on with I forget the acronym, but it's using LiDAR, for example, where you actually get some feedback from what's in front of you, and you would see it in that perspective. It would be very meaningful to the operator from a quality perspective. You can't hear it, but there are the engine sounds, the sounds, the mechanical sounds of the machine working, which are all very very coincident with what you would hear in real life. And so, yeah, it's the small things that matter, or the small things that matter when it comes to trying to learn a specific methodology. I see there at one point you tried extending the boom without the stabilizers down. Yeah, so you get it before you ever get into a tipping situation, then the program will alert you. Certainly we've had our share of fun going through and seeing what kind of things we can do to the concrete surface after it should look very flat, and see what kind of defects we can introduce. But the nice thing is you just reset and start over, and keep right on training. Do we want to jump into a different exercise, or?
Yeah, I think we're running out of time. I think we're trying to keep on track. I think we have like a minute or two left.
Yeah, we are pretty close actually.
Yeah.
Familiarization.
Okay, so I think what I'll do, I'm gonna jump back into the presentation.
Yep.
We can do a wrap up and certainly take questions.
Just advance the first slides, just two reference slides.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I think we've already gone through some of these, but, so overall, just, Devin, appreciate you kind of taking the heat for getting a live demonstration done. Great technology, but what I've learned from my own perspective is that sharing that vision of the technology, or sharing what we're trying to do here, that's really the most difficult part to it. But once you're actually in the environment using it, it's very very intuitive, very fun to work with, and really brings it all together. So I'd for sure love to thank the ForgeFX team for providing us with such a great product. And yeah, we look forward to being able to roll this out at our training center down in Fort Myers, which we already have headsets there. And as we start to grow this into our vocational efforts and so on. So I don't want to run over time. I know that I don't hear anybody kicking the door in to get in here, but certainly I do want to have some time for Q&A. Couple last things. We did have the VR simulator, as one of, able to be nominated for one of the Innovative Product Awards. So if you're interested, certainly do that. We always encourage, all our friends to do the same. And, if anybody wants to see this, live in person, we could probably hang around for a few minutes and try it. Otherwise, both Somero and ForgeFX have the trainers set up in their booths. We're in C5303, and ForgeFX is in C6106. We're 2 aisles apart and fairly close. And other than that, thank you. So, happy to take any questions if there's any that are out there.
How is this marketed? Are you selling it or?
Yeah, great question. So we are selling it. We have kind of two retail outlets. They'll come through direct to us. The distribution is fulfilled by a third party, but it has all the Somero and the Forge application on it. We have a retail price that's I think everybody would find very attractive. And then we also have an academic vocational price, which I think is going to be very attractive to those types of institutions as well. So direct distribution. Any other questions? Does anybody want to try the simulator? Well, thank you. Appreciate your time, and certainly appreciate the ForgeFX team helping us out with this. It's been a great journey so far. Thank you.